with simplicity and minimalism.
We as designers really impact.
Very clear with what they like, what they don't like.
They come to us to make their lives easier.
Understand their old house.
As designers, we also should know where to stop.
They are not laymen. They are very well educated.
Because you are on the project for years, right?
You are someone who's creating their dream.
Hi everyone, today all of us are here to be discussing the topic, how do designers influence client lifestyles, as part of Aristo's Designers Roundtable. And I have with me 8 amazing designers. How do you feel designers influence the lifestyle of clients beyond just how it looks and the aesthetics?
For 10 decades now, we've been into eco-responsive style of architecture. And what we had noticed is back then we had to create an influence, but right now we have very informed clients. So they do come to us for what we do. So it's the next level game for us when they're informed, when they know and they ask for more. So it's more exciting for us to respond to it. So we take this to the next step. It's been an exciting journey.
Lovely. Anyone else here? Chintan?
I think probably also to start with, before even looking at influencing clients' life, I think our own sort of philosophy as a design studio, what we stand for, we should be probably clear on that. So I think as we sort of grow and establish our practice, this philosophy becomes more and more clear at what is it that you want to focus on. And I think we've been sort of very clear about keeping things very simple and not sort of complicate things. So we kind of have this basic principle of kind of stay with simplicity and minimalism as a foundation, and everything sort of draws from there, right? And then we basically, the team is sort of aligned that, okay, that's the framework for all our projects, and that should be the reflection, right? That should sort of that's the knowledge that you want to impart in our projects and the work that we do. And also I think how we engage with each of our client and how personally sort of I think having that friendly yet professional relationship is very important, especially when you are building or designing a home where you are sort of really touching on a lot of the personal lives and sort of how they're going to use this space on a day-to-day basis, right? So I think having that, creating a space where client is able to sort of open up with you and sort of comfortable to share their sort of ideas, and how much you listen and how much you sort of help them navigate through this entire journey from design to execution, right? I think that's what is probably important for us to sort of work with each client very, very closely to sort of have that outcome in place.
Got it.
Yeah, I think very well said, where the relationship needs to be built on that foundation with the client, where they can be upfront about their needs, because I think luxury is very different for everyone.
Yep.
It can't be the same for someone whose budget is like, let's say lower or higher, doesn't matter, but their experience is what it is, right? Like their experience will define their idea of luxury. And for someone, it could be something as simple as like a mud house, but for someone, it could be as fancy as like, very marble cladded and all. And depends on their nurture and the entire idea of like what they've experienced in life. So that conversation of like a self-reflection from the client needs to be very clear cut with the designer, that what is their experience and what is luxury for them. And then to tackle that point, and how do you tackle with your own processes. And I think somehow the good part about being a designer is that you can refine or you can tame those experiences or their ideas of luxury according to the processes, according to the budgets, according to the context. And those relationships that you form is what will give you a beautiful project in the end, which would be very catered to the client.
Right, true. I think one of the things I'm going to take from both of your points and segue into possibly another question is, what aspects of a client's lifestyle do you think designers can impact or will impact? And I'm sure this will vary when we go from, let's say, an interior designer to an architect, or from someone who does homes to someone who does, restaurants or commercial projects. So that would be nice to hear on what are the aspects you think that we as designers really.
So I think first and foremost, to bring any kind of impact, there needs to be clarity. And a lot of times when the clients come to us, they have a lot of ideas, but there's no structure to the thought. And that is where, being an architect or a designer, we can step in and really create a structure, a format, which will actually make these ideas and designs more feasible and kind of see it through. Right. So, I think structure is something that we bring to the table, irrespective of whether we're doing homes or restaurants. Doesn't matter what the scale of the project is. That should be the start. And once the clarity is there in place, then the rest of the things kind of, follow.
So you give shape to their.
Yeah, not just to the space, but also to the ideas.
So aesthetics is something that now a lot of people have a lot of access to because they're Instagram and social media. So they're very clear with what they like, what they don't like.
Right.
But when it comes to how to use this space, since decades we've had wardrobes with just shelves and hangers, and that's how they've been storing their clothes for the longest time. So they've not thought about how better can we do it.
Right.
And that's where I think we as designers can come in and sort of help them figure out and navigate how to make space for every single one of their pieces so that it's less of a clutter and it's more minimalist in the entire sense.
Got it. So somewhat playing the role of educating that.
Correct. Very well.
Thomas, you were saying?
No, just the same thing. So it's about how much you determine. Are you trying to guide them through it, or you trying to enforce it? So that line there's a fine line, right, that you draw, and then so like even when you're drawing a structure, I'm sure every project or every client is different. Our approach on every project is we treat every project as its own, every client as its own, and our influence in terms of how much we put a structure or how much we influence a client, it is dependent on the client or the project itself. So sometimes, see, it is our duty because that's what they come to us for.
Yeah.
So they come to us to make their lives easier, to make it functional, to give them the best. Now, to make it aesthetic is on us. And beyond that, what you can do is all on us. And there's endless possibilities to what can happen. But we also draw that fine line saying, okay, this works for this. Now, if the client says, no, maybe, you know what, I know it works, but maybe not for me. Then I think we should also learn to take a step back and say, you know what, it's all right. It's your game.
Right.
I think a little bit of what I think all our points is that, I don't think we reinvent their lifestyle. Right. That is what it is, and we have to work with it. But a lot of times, we as a practice, we try to give them alternate ways in which they can do the same thing that they've been doing all their life. So that can become a little bit more easier. For the space can support it a little bit more easier. So when we start doing that, initially there's always a resistance from the client, that because we're rethinking the way they approach something that they do day in and day out, and something which Ananya said, as simple as a kitchen, right? Finding a spot for everything. Kitchen is very personal, so the person using it gets very personal about it. They're like, so I'm used to this, I'm used to that. Yeah. But when you say, no, try doing this and it's going to make your life a little bit easier. It's just that few months of settling in. When we start doing these small adjustments, and if the client is open to it, I think the end product is a lot more functional and aesthetically balanced, right? Versus one-sided.
Right.
No. I somehow think we do reinvent their life. We do. Trust me, because the way that you circulate, the way that you feel, the way that you will approach a space, all of your, if the space is, let's say, geared towards an outdoor activity area where the mood is set to that, right? The landscape speaks in that way. The sunlight hits the right place. Your windows are placed right. You will reinvent their mood, their entire day's routine, everything, because now they would want to be catered through that. You have given them a nicer lens in front of it to look at the world better.
That's what we are hired for.
Yeah.
So you come into the picture for that.
Right.
Like you make the light quality better, you make the air quality better, you make the circulation more meaningful, you
Correct.
optimize space. And to me, those are functional. And that's basic. You're expected to do that.
Right.
Now, beyond that, that's the fine line that you have to find. Till then, it's the basic. We anyways have to do all of that. So in that sense, like Dheeraj said, I think we make a big impact, especially like, improving their light quality. So that light coming in the morning just makes them, just makes somebody just happier, just like that.
Yeah.
But with that basic stuff, right? Like the forms, the material, the play, all of that, when it hits exactly what it has to hit, is when the masterpiece happens.
Most often or not, all of us would love to start rather going into their space only after we get finalized, right? So somewhere, if we really understand the client, taking that step of making sure that we have been hired and making sure that we understand their old house in detail makes a lot of difference. Rightly pointing about kitchen, it's some research says a woman travels all the way from Mumbai back to Bangalore. That is the amount of running around happens in the kitchen, right? So if you don't design it functionally right, then it becomes a hassle in its own, and they don't really understand. They feel whatever the way that they were using is the right way. And fortunately, some people are blessed to understand, some people are, sometimes we might need to push them hard to make them understand. And that's what, I think that's exactly why we are all hired to do.
I think it's almost like a motor sensory, right? Like you would not even know it that it's happening when you get it right.
It's rather that you see when you see a badly designed space, or when you're forced to live in a badly designed space, that would be a real eye-opener.
A lot of times after heights.
Correct.
I know I've had clients call back and say, I never realized I put something even better. To knock it out or a paint, make a match your door or something. It's just few inches that made a huge difference.
Yeah, like you give your client a bloody good kitchen and they'll let you kind of do the rest of it.
Wardrobe
Right? Wardrobe is right? Because I think many times, we observed that second time owners, they are a lot more sort of practicality driven.
Right.
So even if you're presenting a concept, they're still like, okay, like wardrobe. They're curious about it. When are you going to show me the wardrobe, right? So
But also it depends on how open they are to an idea, right? Sometimes they're just adverse to the idea because they're not exposed to it.
Right.
And now there's so much you can push on it.
Right.
And beyond that, it gets uncomfortable for both parties. And then you're like, should I push on it further? Should I let it be?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you know that it is a mistake.
Yeah.
No, it's not even like it's okay, it works. But sometimes if they're not open to it, then and that's a tricky spot.
True.
Back in this client's,
Yeah.
the boss lady is happy is very big.
Very important, right? Yeah.
Sometimes even agreeing for the things that in spite of knowing it's not right. Also sometimes. Most of the times. And recent project, the lady is 5, the height. So we had to apparently design the hob station a little lower than typically that we look at, and that really helped her, and that made her happy. My design got screwed. It was still okay, because the end of the day, she's the one who is going to use it, and if she is happy, husband is happy, and my payments are clean. So that's how it works. Yeah.
So I think we all then agree that somewhere, designers do influence clients beyond aesthetic in terms of their well-being, probably the way they use their spaces, and definitely then create an impact that goes beyond just how a space looks. My thought here, or rather my question here is, while doing so, I think all of us are somewhere trying to push the boundary and push the envelope a little bit. What are the typical challenges you face? Other than, of course, just trying to create that education and that awareness. Beyond that, what really have been things that you all have come across as challenges?
Let's face it, we don't want to recreate what we have done in the last project. every one of us would ideally want to recreate something different, which is always an inspiration which we have taken from designers around us. And when we are typically trying to do something new, we should be very, very mindful of the fact that you are not designing your house or your own space. It is always someone else's money that you are trying to be, you should be worried of, and you should care for it. And when somewhere striking a deal between both of it will make the design happen, is what I feel, and that is what we have been practicing, and we were able to achieve it.
So I think it's between finance, the cost aspect of it, and the risk factor. Finance, obviously, because everything boils down to finance. You always have a great idea. There's always a great product, but does it work? Like, does it fit the budget? Because let's face it, ultimately, it all comes down to the numbers. And then the next thing is, I think, the risk factor. Like, we're trying something. We all love to try something new, but then you're asking yourself that question: is this going to work? What if something happens? Like, what if it doesn't? The end result is not as fruity as it seems to be. Then how are we going to deal with it? So sometimes you are lucky to have clients who will be like, let's take a chance. If it doesn't work, we'll fix it, or we'll get something else. Sometimes it's going to be a problem, and that's when you, like, as much as you want to do that new thing at every project, you will like, let's just play it safe and see what works.
I think this chance factor depends upon how well you're able to convince the client, saying this is really going to be a hit, and then they have their confidence on you, and then they're okay to go ahead.
So the thing is, right, when you push really hard and convincing is not a problem. Like, most of us here are doing what we are doing because we are great at convincing. Now, when you sell that thing and it backfires, right, it comes back to you with double the cost.
Because you sold it.
Yes. Otherwise, you can like brush it under the carpet and be like, it's okay, we thought as much.
In spite of having those many drawings, details drawn, your 3Ds and your earlier reference pictures, you start seeing that there are some more pictures that come from various places. But then there's no clarity on how. I think what the clients find it very hard is to imagine how the space looks.
Definitely.
So what has worked for me is I kind of spend time with them, not discussing the design at all. You provide some other kind of comfort, and you develop that rapport with them. They trust you for what you are, and you kind of talk about other things and then come back, because most of the times we find ourselves explaining them what we do, but not required. You are someone who's creating their dream. So if you're capturing the requirement well and they trust you, then it shows off in the product. So if it didn't show, then it's our failure as designers. So that amount of drawings, details at a client's level, I don't think is necessary. But we need all of those to explain to our teams, execution teams, to have that executed right.
True.
So actually these details, right, like whenever we take up a project, we say very clearly that this is the design timeline, this is the time that we're going to take for technical drawings. And sometimes the first challenge is that itself, where clients question you, why is design taking so long? Why is it taking so long to actually make those drawings? Because they're not fully aware of the fact that that is the value addition that we are bringing to the table, because they're only looking at what the end result is. They get really excited and happy when they see a render or a walkthrough, but how does that render or walkthrough actually get converted to a space? Into the space, it takes a lot of technical details, drawings. So it has, I have found this challenging to actually explain it and tell them that, hey, 1 year is like a very normal timeline for a decent interior project, from design to execution. And maybe, they are used to certain different expectations also because of the general mass expectations set in the market that, free design. We've all at some point seen this. Design is free and like it's the product that is.
After sharing a timeline, it's difficult to even because you can't really put a timeline to a design very in a calculative manner that you'll be able to finish, because you want to improvise at every level, right? Even if it goes for an execution, you want to improvise, so that kind of negotiating with client on the timeline, which sort of, because good things take time, right? So that's a challenge, definitely. But,
Also, the client wants to improvise on site.
Who said it? That Vikia. I was just about to say I have a new kind of problem. I really think his expectation mismatches. She because first you're getting into the picture, you set an expectation for them, you educate them, you do everything, and then see these guys have access to everything, which is good in a lot of ways. But the pain is that they go overdo that exercise, and they come back with new lessons for us, and then they have to unlearn a lot of things and then relearn a lot of things, and it's that's a challenge when I think as designers we also should know where to stop, and what we communicate the point. And yes, the trust factor helps in that, because beyond this, trust me that you're going to get a space, and the relationship with the client usually helps in doing that. So sometimes we over communicate, we over complicate, and then it comes along and bites us.
Each project is unique. Each time is new. It's not that we come with this kind of experience. Each client is very different. So every time it's you're starting fresh.
And they're getting smarter by the day. Like you said, there's so much information available. There have been projects where we have been taught new materials which the client has explored, and those kind of learnings are of course very exciting, but in the sense that we are no longer the sole subject matter experts here, especially when it comes to interiors. With architecture, I feel that there's still a little bit more, they're very to the structure in place, right? So we can override a lot of things.
Everything is good to go until it's on paper. Now suddenly they come to site and they experience volume, and they be like, oh my god, this is not what I wanted. And now what do you do?
No, exactly. In one of the cases when we were designing an elevation and the client saw a section of 450 mm section, he was like, oh, is this getting into my building? Then, oh no, this is not what I wanted. And we had to send back all the materials.
Oh, wow.
Right? So, happens.
Yeah, right. That happens because so when you say 450 mm, they're not comprehending how big that is going to be on site, right?
Unfortunately, he's a builder. So I can't even say that he doesn't know things, right?
And if it's a layman, it should be a good go.
But the word layman, I hate it. Clients use it as a weapon against you. They're like,
Absolutely.
they're like, but we're just laymen and we didn't know this was what it is. So can we please go about?
Yeah.
Subject could be. Yeah, very subject, because they are not laymen. They are very well educated, very well aware about what they're getting in, but this gives them a little bit of flexibility to change their mind.
I think we need to draw a line to what extent we hear what's coming from their side. It's very important, because otherwise it just goes beyond the overall essence of what we want to be capturing there.
Right.
So smartly we have to say no at some stage, and that needs to be really polite.
For the benefit of the project and the client.
Okay, so many times I tell my clients that we are a team. We are here together.
Yeah.
And we
all have a common purpose here. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes some great ideas come off the client side.
I'm going to say that.
Yeah. We've had that in a couple of our projects where we had oriented it a certain way. It looked nice on paper. It works theoretically and all of that. But once things started shaping, it made sense to turn the whole thing around.
Yeah.
And as in terms of orientation of furniture and open out to another place. And then initially I was so disturbed, because we spent so much time. And the thing is, you're so used to looking at something.
Yeah.
And then you think it's the best idea ever. And then you're like, oh, maybe you should not. And then he's like, no, just come to site and see how this thing works. And then I went to site and I'm like, oh my God, how did I not see this? So I think that's when that going to site and experiencing and spending some time there. And so this client also spends a lot of time at site. Right. In most cases, we are really scared of that aspect, but in this case, it worked for us.
No, that's true. I think the best ideas actually can come from anywhere.
Yeah.
It could be from someone just standing outside. It could be a contractor sometimes.
Correct,
it could be
Yeah.
a client.
It's a collective
I think it is
effort.
always
So
that.
if it's
And I think just having that
take-
open mind really helps. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's both ways, right? Like a lot of times we designers are also very attached. Like you said, either it's get used to seeing something in a certain way, because envisioned it a certain way. We're very attached to a concept or a thought. It's difficult for us also to break out from it and accept. You always see it the other side. You see clients are like this, but we are also like this.
Yeah.
Tom 6 very tightly.
Sure.
Yeah.
But a lot of times in a lot of projects, whenever I've seen that we let loose a little bit, the output has been a lot more peaceful for everyone.
I think peaceful is the right word.
The upright.
Guidance makes them happy.
If there's a reason.
Yeah.
Pick your battles. Yes, you need to know when to.
No, I was just saying, yeah, we just get so tunnel visioned, and it happens because you are on the project for years, right? Like if it's an architecture project, it has to go on for a year or more.
Yeah.
And interiors also, like, I would say minimum 6 months and maximum goes on, depending on the size. But yeah, we have started with a concept, right? And I was also going to say, like, a concept helps you to filter out a lot of the clients' things that come your way, where you can always just tell them, like, this is the concept, like, this is what we are sticking with. We won't move around because this won't fit in. And that helps with the filtration, but also because we are also so deep dived into the concept that we are always trying to push that out. So it helps to listen to everyone, like
Yes.
the way that you said, carpenter, plumber, so many good ideas come from those guys.
They're so skilled sometimes.
So sometimes, especially technical stuff, right? Like carpenter, maybe a detail, the plumbers, in our case, like the plumbing stuff and all of that goes in. Sometimes the simplest ideas comes from the plumber.
Comes from the,
Yeah. He'll be like, what do you guys, like, why? Why is it there? Yeah.
You may take drawings on that, right? And then he trashes the whole thing and he just like tuck and it's done.
It's done. Yeah. So like we all discussed before this, where, we agree that today clients are a lot more aware. They are open to a lot more ideas. They see a lot more and know more. How do you sort of balance then between a client's need for functionality, new products, what they're seeing in the marketplace, and their budget?
For us, it's always been a process of elimination. So the client comes to you and gives you her budget.
Yeah.
Then you list things that you have to do. And now when you list things that you have to do, you're not actually keeping in mind the budget. You're listing everything that you have to do.
Right.
And then you start on with the process of elimination. Then you say, okay, this maybe can go, this can go. The reason being, then the client's also comfortable that, okay, this was on the table.
Yeah.
Now we have decided to not have it. So it's always better than we deciding, oh, let's not do this because this might not fit the budget. Because for the client, the priority might be different. He would have thought like, okay, I can have this, maybe I cannot have this. And you would have thought about it the other way. So for us, it's always been a process of elimination, and you find that very comfortable because the client's comfortable, he knows what's happening, we know what's happening.
Right.
And even if the budget's going higher, we know why it's going higher. So that's been the way.
But is that just a change in materiality, or are you looking at changing the entire design to suit the budget?
Change
In material.
in terms of material, in terms of
construction techniques and
So we do something very similar. After the entire design is done, we do must-haves, good to haves, and then anything excessive in terms of the design aspect. And then they know exactly what is really needed, and then what is the additional component. Again, when we're not changing the design. We give them 3 options. Now, a beading can be done with plywood and laminate, or with veneer, or with solid wood. All of these come at different price tags, so we give them that. These are the pros and cons of each, and you pick which one suits your budget.
yeah.
Exercise we've been following since we started is we do a priority mapping on the floor plan. So we do primarily interior, so we already had a basic floor plan to work with. So we ask them, you pin, say, I'll put my money here, I'll not put my money there. Just a very broad understanding of what's important to them and not important. So while we design itself, we are a lot more conscious that, okay, we can go a little overboard here. They may be willing to spend, and even if we don't, we have an alternative in our minds planned for those things. A lot of times, because it already in their mind planned that I want my living room to feel very luxurious or my guest room to have bare me. We more or less match it, and it's just like very minor modifications. So we set the tone for that conversation very big, even before we start this.
Yeah, that one guy's bedroom always suffers.
It's always the guest bedroom.
So design and detail comes at a cost.
Yeah.
So we're also very responsible professionals. So we know who we are talking to. We're familiar with them with the multiple interactions that we have had. So, and we also understand their aspirations. So architecture is not that easy where you say, this comes at this cost, this comes at this cost.
Yeah.
There's no awareness at our clients' level. They have no idea what they're asking for, what that can cost.
Yeah.
It's very blurred even for them, even for us.
Right.
Yeah.
If we knew everything, then we can't be creative. In what we so many times what we have seen is we take them a little to the discomfort level.
Yeah.
But what we realized is they're also growing with us.
Yeah.
The extra money they ask for, many times they really talk in their own aspiration list, and they try trying that much more with the
To meet it, yeah.
do well in what they do and earn that money. So it then becomes a very collaborative, beautiful overall progress for everyone.
So what I'm hearing is if you as a designer are able to present the value that something is bringing to a client, then more likely than not the client is going to make an effort to, try to work with that. And how then do you go about sharing and bringing that value across to the client? Like how do you, interpret that and tell them that this is going to add value to you in this manner?
Most clients come through reference. That is, either they have seen one of our projects through any platforms, or they have come of word of mouth. So they already have a template of what we have already designed. So to break it all down, instead of, I'm not saying whatever we are doing is wrong, but to just give them a rough number, what is the per square feet rate that we have encountered, that gives them a ballpark. So from there, taking the elevation of what they really want. Now I had a very funny client recently. As soon as I asked him what is the budget, he just laughed at me. I was like, how can I fix a budget for my house? I'm like, how many clients will we have like that? Right? And there was one excellent client for me who worked in Oman, who did not even visit the course, or rather the site, through the course of the journey, not even once. And that went out so beautifully. The understanding was so good. Why? Because he also worked back in Oman in the same industry. Now, these are some of the examples that we encountered, but otherwise, we always set example with our old projects of what we have done. So that way they are aware, and we should be very practical in making them aware that jump up of 20% to be kept regardless of anything.
I totally agree, because what you want also is not fixed, right?
Correct.
When you, I think what happens is people first fix the budget and then they think of what they want.
Yes.
Now that's a problem, and it's okay, because nobody is like, they don't have the experience in setting a budget. Like, having done so many projects, when we set budgets, we are not on point.
Right.
Like, there could always be a variation. But like you said, it's up to you to tell them this is how it's going to add value. And if he says no, I'm not comfortable doing that, then it's a call that we've taken. We all live with it.
I feel we have to be responsible with a client's money, no matter what the budget is. And what we bring to the table is actually guiding them with, things which will actually make a difference to their life. I mean, like Aishwarya said, it absolutely makes sense for them to say that these are the areas where we want to spend. But we also should be able to come back to them and say that from our experience, these are the areas where you need to spend and, not go cheap. and these are the areas where you can actually, bring it in later. And a lot of the times I think we are so hell-bent on getting that final photo shoot done that we want to get everything into the house, irrespective of whether the clients have the budget to do that or not. But sometimes kind of taking a step back and giving them what is needed and letting the house grow eventually. It's a very hard thing for us to do because we've envisioned this as an entire end product. But sometimes giving that flexibility that, maybe we can still do that photo shoot. Maybe we can come in a year later and there might be some choices which we may not have made, but it still is a reflection of, what a client feels about their home. So I think those are some negotiations that we have to make. So I feel like that is one way to kind of balance that and not push for the complete end product.
I think that's an excellent point you made, because I feel like the pressure that is there around us as creatives to constantly put out something interesting and new and sort of be there also becomes a bit of a driving force when you are working on different projects.
So we have a project that has come out recently. We're just seeing, the photographs are seeing the light now.
Yeah.
We finished that 4 years back.
Wow.
And we sat tight. We didn't move because the client had to come back and they had to put some things. But they were really nice. Everything they added, they would ask us. And we'd be like, this works. You could do this, you could do that. Because the budget was a problem and they're like, okay, we'll do it eventually, but we will do it.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, just do it, like whenever y'all are comfortable. So it took 4 years from the time we stepped out.
Right.
And then we went back to get photographs. It was 4 years. Totally worth it. And you're not scared, right? You're not scared that, in 4 years, are we going to get outdated? No, like if you create and if you're so confident about what you're making, then you could wait 10 years to get a photograph, I think.
Actually, a testimonial. Client is very happily meets.
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
Yes.
No, I think it's especially a residential project. I think to airport, Gayathri said, I think we have to give them room to express themselves and they evolve in that space. Especially like future flexibility has to be there for them, Family grows, needs change, devices change. You cannot enforce a concept or a vision and say, this is it, this is the hope. A lot of ways, yes, we do influence majority of it, but we always make it a point, like we don't choose the art. 90% of the time in our projects, we picture that we put for them. We'll be like, you take your time. You want to travel, you want to go to Ganges, you want to buy, commission, do whatever you would. You do it. I only have one suggestion, just keep color concepts or something in mind, because the space is been put together, and if that's the centerpiece of the space, keep that in the room.
The number of interactions you have had with the clients, they take a hand up and they're in that excitement, in that they want to do something for you.
Yeah.
Themselves. It's theirs. So many a times you're like, pick your furniture, pick your products, pick your things. It's not that we want to do everything.
Very interesting story that I had of my old client is, his grandfather had built a cot for himself, which was carry forwarded in his house. Now, I know the console was not looking that great with the theme, but making it look right is our creativity. Making sure that the sentiment is carried is our creativity. Like which, in the same house, we were able to introduce the sofa, we were able to introduce a couple of cots, some of the console table, study table, which was used again of a grandfather, was used by his daughter today. So integrating all of it together will also not cut the budget. It will also make sure that they don't spend that extra money. And clients love it. And some clients are like too much against wastage. They want to use everything that is there. So how much could you support as a designer really matters. And that's where it shows to the client how much you are as a designer standing behind them.
Right.
Yeah, but that's a very interesting aspect there. So clients, like you said, they don't like to waste, they like to reinvent everything. But the minute you tell them the cost of doing it up, then be like, is it cheaper to buy a new one? Then let's just stick to that.
We always ask them when they want to declare this furniture or they want to carry forward something, we always ask them, does it have a nostalgia factor, sentimental value? other guys don't put that effort into like, trying to make it work, because we've had scenarios where they spend a lot of money building something, putting something together. Once it's done, they're like, you should just got a new one. The old one only looked better than this, So we always like have that conversation that counts. True for anything with respect to cost, right? Like we evaluate the choices versus what they suggest, the budget. That evaluation happens through the entire course of the project at many stages in multiple formats.
No, I completely agree. One of my closest friends, she's my sister, apparently I had to do her house. She pushed me to. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken up. And she was like, I bought this recliner right now. I want you to use this. I was like, if you ask me to use this recliner, I'll not even start your house. So I was very clear. And
That's where you draw the line.
every choice is quite jintak. Now, I had to keep her away from her own house. So that's a call that I was able to take. And because she's a relation, I was able to collect my money at the end, right? I had the confidence that I can collect the money. But
Usually the other way around. There is no chance that your money comes in at the end.
no, it does come. It takes some time, but it does come. So yeah, those are the calls that you need to take. You are very straightforward in your communication, saying this is exactly what it fits.
And I think sometimes very interesting, like if you take this approach of like, let's say like any sentimental value or anything which is very close to the client's heart, and if you take like rather than taking a top down approach, you take a down to top approach, like a bottom to top approach, where the entire piece or that style becomes the center of the concept and it just builds out.
Yeah.
Like for example, a table has actually helped you build a house. So that could be a very interesting approach for us designers if there are those elements involved.
Yes.
And I think your entire journey with the client can just start from there. And it's a beautiful starting point where you can also they also will become so close to the entire process because they understand how the process started.
Yeah, the challenges can become the highlight of the project, right?
Yeah.
And also, I think as a designer, we want to enjoy each project, the process of it, and sort of know as much as the problems will come with every project, but idea is to also empathize with client as much and also how much to listen, right? Like because their ideas and probably a lot of the ideas they just want you to sort of hear, and there has to be a good a mix of a very kind of mutual decisions that we take together with each client, right?
Very symbiotic.
Yeah.
I think that's where the relationship building really
Mm.
right? Where they really take your opinion more seriously and not just as a designer who's pushing their design.
Yeah.
No, this audio is this one phone call, no? Like even if the team was done the best, they're like, we just want to know Aishwarya's opinion. And I would have consciously stepped out of that because I want them to be the decision maker, then to take the call, and you would still get that message even you like this, and it's nice when you get that sort of when you have that sort of a relationship with that client.
So I think in many ways, clients look to us as thought leaders and they want to sort of hear from us how value can be built into their homes, or how do you, make sure that you're able to sort of infuse their spaces with that knowledge that you have.
Automation.
Yes.
That's
Such a big one now.
Big thing, right? Like a lot of times when we just mention the word automation, clients are like, no, I'll become too lazy, I'll not get up and turn on my fan, no. And like, see, let's get to the reason why we want you to have automation. It's not just you not being able to get up and do something. There's so many other factors that come into it. So a lot of education in terms of what automation is, what are the benefits that you get, how different age groups benefit through it. Like a lot of things we have to educate them, especially with technology, because some clients technology scares them, some don't want to invest in it because they're not thought about it before. So a lot of times giving that, I send a lot of videos I send it to experience centers. I don't tag along. You go experience it yourself. And I'll tell you, 90% of the clients that I've sent who I've never even expected or anticipated to pick automation are the ones who spend the most on automation.
Yeah.
I think it's about putting it across as an option
Yeah.
and not as a mandate.
Yeah, right, of course.
See, that's what or you also have to understand who's going to use it.
Yeah.
So we've had this project where the daughters were building for their parents, and they were hell bent on having automation. And then the mother called me one day and he's like, Thomas, I'll have to literally call these guys to understand how to put that switch. Put that light off. And then I'm like, I call these guys. I'm like, you know what? It doesn't make sense, because as much as I'm for automation and for all of this, you also have to understand who's using it.
Yeah.
Now, at whatever stage they are in, you cannot put them onto an alien idea, no matter how great that idea is.
Yeah.
But because it's just going to throw them off that comfort.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, automation and things is one place where you can really think. It makes sense, no doubt. Like it makes life easier. It's all great. But how is it going to directly impact that person who's using it? So
Yeah, the use case scenario has to make
Yeah.
sense. Absolutely.
So actually, one of my clients, we had the same exact issue where they were building it for their grandparents even. He absolutely won't be able to use it at this point. But they were hell bent upon it. They said they wanted to make their lives easier by introducing automation. But after it was done, I also saw them struggling with not being able to use it at all. It was a huge investment and it just went for a waste. So I think technology, we need to know how much to want to push it on them and do they really need it?
Yeah.
If not, maybe skip it.
Right. And who needs what?
The budget also. So, there is a huge cost associated with it, and which is why for us, we never recommend any automation from our end. If the client comes and asks for it, then we'll see how to kind of build it in, because other than maybe like a biometric lock for your door, I think that's where my push for automation stops, because that's helped me personally and I personally use it, so I feel it's a good thing to have. But that money that goes into automation is also a huge cost.
I think we just try to, at least in our project, we stick to only the lighting part of it, because I feel for home, lighting plays a very, very important role. Like compared to a commercial space, for home, you don't need a very bright light.
Yeah.
You need a lot of indirect light, and I think it really changes your psychology, the mood, the vibe, right? So I think that is very simplified, and there's just very easy solutions available, very cost effective. So only sticking to lighting has kind of helped and not get too complicated unless really clients wants to pursue it fully. We don't really push for it,
I
right?
think a lot of times, lot of homes these days have become multi-purpose.
Yeah.
They're not, yes, they're lucky to have larger homes that every function has a space to it. But there are a lot of homes when we do where multiple activities happen.
So expensive.
Yeah. Like you mentioned, Chintan, like lighting is a huge factor when it comes to that, and that's where the introduction of automation even comes into play. And then we ask them to go and experience it at a place where they can physically have a sense of how it feels.
again, it's on the client. So some things that you think is very important may be very trivial to the client. He'll prefer something else. So I think that changes from client to client, site to site. So I think as a designer, you should just identify what that is and identify what is important, and then just execute it for that and treat every site as a site. And then the next project might not even be the same. Like you said, we do a lot of projects and we don't even talk about technology, but we also do projects where, like,
The center.
everything, like I walk into that space and I'm like, okay, now where do I buy stuff, right?
Every project is a learning that way. Like we have one client who's hellbent not touch switches. I had one client call me or leave me a message at 10:30 when I said, Aishwarya, I can't find which switch is on, which switch is off without opening my eyes. He put a message. I laughed so much about it because, see, we as designers, we pitch in so many ideas and concepts, but then what works for one never works.
Never works for another. I think it was such a wonderful discussion with each one of you and hearing all your thoughts and ideas. Having a great relationship with a client is probably the first and the most key step that can take you through the entire course of a project. And I also think designers do a really tightrope walk in terms of being thought leaders, bringing value to the table, but at the same time being really conscious about what is right for the client and what is possible within the budget they have, and being sort of respectful of working that framework. And I think it's a great partnership at the end of the day. Just like you mentioned, the outcome is as good as the partnership. Thank you so much, everybody. It was absolutely lovely.